What if Hollywood's biggest failures were actually smarter than the hits? Some sci-fi movies did not fail because they were bad. They failed because audiences were not ready. Studios marketed them badly, or critics misunderstood them. These films lost money, disappeared fast, or were mocked too early. But years later, fans looked back and realized something shocking. The box office was wrong. Number 20, Titan AE 2000. When Titan AE arrived in 2000, it looked like the future of animated science fiction. It had space battles, alien worlds, hand-drawn characters mixed with digital effects, and a story about humanity trying to survive after Earth is destroyed. On paper, it should have been huge. Instead, it crashed hard. The problem was timing. Audiences were moving toward Pixar-style computer animation, while traditional animation was starting to look old-fashioned to studios. Titan AE was caught in the middle. It was too mature for very young children, too animated for adults who thought cartoons were only for kids, and too expensive to be ignored as a small experiment. But the movie itself is far more interesting than its failure suggests. It gives young viewers a huge idea. Humanity is not saved by one chosen warrior, but by memory, courage, and the need to rebuild. The visuals still have energy, especially in the ice ring chase and the strange alien designs. Its universe feels bigger than the story we see. It may not be perfect, but it is bold. And sometimes, a bold failure leaves a deeper mark than a safe success. Number 19, Treasure Planet 2002. Disney spent years dreaming of Treasure Planet, a space-age version of Treasure Island where pirate ships fly through the stars and old adventure myths are rebuilt with solar sails, cyborgs, and alien ports. But when it finally came out, the audience simply did not show up. That failure made it look like Disney had made a mistake. But watch the movie now, and it feels less like a mistake and more like a studio taking a rare creative risk. Treasure Planet is not just a sci-fi cartoon. It is a coming-of-age story about a wounded boy who does not trust anyone and a dangerous mentor who becomes the father figure he never had. The relationship between Jim Hawkins and Long John Silver is the heart of the film. Silver is not a simple villain. He is greedy, charming, broken, and almost loving. That emotional conflict gives the film a weight many bigger animated hits never had. Visually, the film is still stunning. The mix of 18th century pirate style and futuristic space travel should not work, but somehow it does. It creates a world that feels hand-built, strange, and alive. The box office rejected it. But for many fans, Treasure Planet became the Disney adventure that was too imaginative for its own time. Number 18, Pandorum 2009. Pandorum looked like another dark spaceship horror movie when it opened in 2009. Audiences had already seen haunted ships, alien threats, and people waking up with no memory. So the film came and went quickly, almost like it had been thrown into space and forgotten. But Pandorum has one secret weapon: atmosphere. From the first minutes, the ship feels sick. The metal corridors are cramped, the lights flicker, the air feels dirty. This is not clean, heroic space travel. This is space as a coffin. The story follows crew members who wake up aboard a massive colony ship with no clear memory of what happened. Slowly, the film turns into a survival nightmare. Are they alone? Are they insane? Has humanity's last hope already rotted from the inside? That question gives the movie a nasty, effective tension. What makes it better than its reputation is the way it combines body horror, psychological fear, and big science fiction stakes. It starts like a monster movie, but underneath, it is about isolation, evolution, and what happens when human beings are trapped too long without truth. It is messy, yes, but it is never boring. Pandorum deserved more than a quick death at the box office. It deserved a cult following, and slowly, that is exactly what it found. Number 17, Soldier, 1998. At first glance, Soldier looked like a simple action movie, starring Kurt Russell as a silent warrior. It was expensive, cold, and released into a market that did not know what to do with it. The box office was brutal, and the film was quickly pushed into the category of failed late 90s sci-fi action. But buried inside that failure is a strangely moving story. Russell plays Todd, a man trained from childhood to be nothing but a weapon. He does not speak much because he was never allowed to become a person. He was built, used, and then thrown away when newer soldiers replaced him. That is where the movie becomes more interesting than expected. It is not really about explosions. It is about a machine-like man slowly discovering gentleness. Todd lands among ordinary people, families, and children, and he has to learn emotions he was never taught. In a better respected film, this would be called tragic character work. The sci-fi world is harsh and industrial, full of military cruelty and disposable lives. The action is heavy, but the emotional center is quiet. Kurt Russell does more with his eyes than many actors do with pages of dialogue. Soldier bombed because people expected a loud blockbuster. What they got was a wounded man learning how to be human. Number 16. The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai, Across the Eighth Dimension, 1984. Some movies fail because they are bad. Buckaroo Banzai failed because nobody could explain what it was. Is it sci-fi, comedy, superhero movie, rock band adventure, alien invasion film? The answer is yes, and that was the problem. The film stars Peter Weller as Buckaroo Banzai, a brain surgeon, physicist, martial artist, rock musician, and interdimensional hero. That sounds ridiculous because it is ridiculous. But the movie commits so completely to its strange world that it becomes impossible not to admire. It never stops to explain itself like a normal studio film. It throws you into a universe that seems to have existed long before the opening scene. Audiences in 1984 did not know how to respond. The marketing could not sell it, and the box office was weak. But over time, the film became a badge of honor for viewers who liked their sci-fi weird, fast, and proudly uncategorizable. John Lithgow gives a wildly unhinged performance, Jeff Goldblum walks around dressed like a cowboy in a sci-fi team, and the whole thing feels like a comic book from another planet. Buckaroo Banzai was not built for everyone. That is exactly why its fans love it. It failed as a product, but survived as a secret handshake. Number 15, The Fountain, 2006. Darren Aronofsky's The Fountain was never going to be an easy sell. It was part love story, part space journey, part spiritual vision, and part meditation on death. That is not the kind of movie audiences usually rush to see on opening weekend. When it arrived, many viewers were confused. Some critics admired it. Others dismissed it as too strange, too emotional, or too abstract. Financially, it underperformed badly. But over the years, The Fountain has become one of those films people discover at exactly the right moment in life. They repeat, echo, collapse, and return. Hugh Jackman gives one of his most vulnerable performances, while Rachel Weisz brings warmth to a film that could have become too cold or symbolic. The visuals are hypnotic, especially the cosmic imagery that looks less like outer space and more like a soul breaking open. The Fountain bombed because it asked audiences to feel before they understood. Years later, that is exactly why it feels brave. Number 14. Under the Skin, 2013. Under the Skin barely behaved like a normal movie, so it is not surprising that the box office was small. It had Scarlett Johansson, but it refused to use her like a regular movie star. It had an alien story, but almost no traditional action. It had horror, but no easy scares. Instead, it followed a mysterious woman driving through Scotland, picking up men, observing humans, and slowly changing in ways even she does not understand. The film is quiet, cold, and deeply unsettling. For many viewers, it felt too slow. For others, it was unforgettable. What makes Under the Skin brilliant is how little it explains. The alien perspective is not delivered through speeches or computer screens. It is shown through faces, bodies, silence, and discomfort. The movie makes ordinary streets feel like another planet. Human behavior becomes strange. Desire becomes dangerous. Kindness becomes shocking. The film also uses Johansson's screen image in a clever way. We are used to watching her. The movie turns that act of watching into something uncomfortable. Who is observing whom? Who is being used? Who is becoming human? This was never going to be a mainstream hit, but it is the kind of sci-fi that proves the genre does not always need spaceships. Sometimes, the alien is standing right beside us. Number 13. Ad Astra, 2019. Ad Astra was sold like a Brad Pitt space adventure, but that is not really what it was. Audiences expecting fast action, aliens, and huge twists found something slower, colder, and sadder. The box office was not disastrous in the usual sense, but for an expensive studio space film with a major star, it underperformed. Yet the movie has aged better than many louder sci-fi releases. At its heart, Ad Astra is about a man who can travel across the solar system, but cannot reach his own father emotionally. That idea sounds simple, but the film turns it into a lonely journey through space, silence, and emotional damage. Brad Pitt plays Roy McBride with almost frightening control. His pulse barely rises, his voice is calm, his face looks disciplined, but underneath he is breaking. Space becomes a mirror for repression. The farther he travels, the more he has to face the emptiness inside himself. The film's moon chase, Mars base, and Neptune imagery are beautiful, but the real spectacle is emotional. It asks a controversial question for a sci-fi blockbuster. What if the universe does not answer us? What if we go all that way and find only our own wounds? Ad Astra disappointed viewers wanting escape. But for those who wanted sadness in the stars, it was quietly powerful. Number 12. Cloud Atlas, 2012. Cloud Atlas was too big, too long, too strange, and too ambitious for easy box office success. It connected 6 stories across different times, from the 1800s to a futuristic dystopia and a post-apocalyptic world. Actors played multiple roles, souls seemed to move through history. Genres changed every few minutes. For many viewers, that was too much. The film was expensive, polarizing, and difficult to market. Was it sci-fi, drama, romance, comedy, historical epic? The answer was all of them, which made it a nightmare for trailers. But its failure does not erase its courage. Cloud Atlas is about how human cruelty repeats. But so does human resistance. A small act of kindness in one age becomes an echo in another. A slave helps a lawyer. A composer creates something eternal. A clone discovers freedom. A frightened man chooses courage. The movie is messy, but its heart is huge. It also dares to believe that stories matter across time. That is not a small idea. That is a massive emotional swing, and the film takes it with full force. Yes, Cloud Atlas has problems, but boring is not one of them. It is the kind of failure Hollywood rarely risks anymore. Expensive, sincere, and completely insane with ambition. Number 11. Sunshine, 2007. Danny Boyle's Sunshine had a killer idea. The sun is dying, Earth is freezing, and a crew is sent into space with a nuclear device to restart it. That sounds like a blockbuster, but the film was darker, quieter, and more psychological than its premise suggested. At the box office, it did not become the hit it deserved to be. But among sci-fi fans, Sunshine slowly became respected for its beauty, tension, and seriousness. This is not a film about space as adventure. It is space as pressure. Every choice matters. Every mistake feels fatal. Every crew member is carrying the weight of a dying planet. The first 2/3 are especially brilliant. The crew debates sacrifice, mission logic, and survival with a cold realism that makes the danger feel real. The sun itself becomes almost religious, too huge to understand, too beautiful to look at, too deadly to approach. Cillian Murphy leads the film with quiet intensity, while the ensemble gives the ship a real sense of community under stress. Even when the movie shifts into more horror-driven territory, the atmosphere remains unforgettable. Sunshine failed to light up the box office, but as a serious, visually stunning space thriller, it burns brighter now than many films that made far more money. Number 10. Annihilation, 2018. Annihilation was too intelligent, too strange, and too disturbing to become an easy mainstream hit. It had a recognizable star in Natalie Portman, but it was not a simple monster movie. It was a film about grief, self-destruction, mutation, and the terrifying beauty of change. The story follows a team of scientists entering the Shimmer, a mysterious zone where nature is being rewritten. Plants grow in impossible shapes, animals become nightmares, human identity begins to blur. The deeper the characters go, the less reality seems to obey any normal rules. That is why the movie is brilliant. It understands that true alien contact might not look like spaceships landing on the White House. It might look like biology losing its boundaries. It might be beautiful and horrifying at the same time. Audiences expecting clean answers were frustrated. The film refuses to explain everything. Its final act is almost wordless, built around movement, reflection, and fear. The alien is not simply attacking humanity. It is transforming everything it touches. The box office was disappointing, but Annihilation became one of the most discussed sci-fi films of its decade. It proved that modern science fiction could still be mysterious, dangerous, and deeply personal. Number 9. Strange Days, 1995. Catherine Bigelow's Strange Days was released in 1995 and landed with a thud. It was expensive, intense, political, and hard to sell. It imagined a near-future Los Angeles where people could record and replay human experiences directly from the brain. That idea alone should have made it a landmark. Instead, audiences largely stayed away. Maybe it was too dark, maybe it was too angry, maybe it looked too much like a thriller and not enough like traditional sci-fi. Whatever the reason, the film became a box office failure. But watch it now, and it feels shockingly ahead of its time. Strange Days predicted a world obsessed with recorded experience, stolen intimacy, police violence, surveillance, and media addiction. Its technology may be fictional, but its fears are painfully real. Ralph Fiennes plays Lenny Nero, a hustler selling other people's memories like black market entertainment. Angela Bassett gives the film its moral spine as Mace, a woman stronger and clearer than everyone around her. Their relationship gives the chaos emotional weight. The film is messy, loud, and sometimes overwhelming. But that is part of its power. It feels like a city screaming at midnight. Strange Days failed in theaters. But as a warning about the future, it looks less like fiction every year. Number 8. Dark City, 1998. Before The Matrix made audiences question reality in leather coats and bullet time, Dark City had already opened the door to a darker, stranger nightmare. But when it arrived in 1998, almost nobody knew what to do with it. It was not a clean action movie. It was not a simple detective thriller. It was not the kind of sci-fi that explained itself with easy rules. So the box office treated it like a mistake, but the real mistake was ignoring it. The story follows John Murdoch, a man who wakes up in a bathtub with no memory, a dead woman nearby, and a city that feels completely wrong. Soon, he discovers that mysterious beings called the Strangers are changing the city every night. Buildings rise from the ground, streets reshape themselves. People are given new memories, new jobs, new marriages, and new lives, all while they sleep. That idea is terrifying because it attacks something deeper than survival. It attacks identity. If your memories can be replaced, if your whole life can be rewritten, then what part of you is still real? The film's world is unforgettable. It looks like a nightmare version of old film noir. Endless night, wet streets, sharp shadows, and a city that never sees the sun. Alex Proyas creates a place that feels both beautiful and trapped. Dark City failed in theaters, but its ideas aged brilliantly. It was not just ahead of its time, it was standing in the future, waiting for audiences to catch up. Number 7. Gattaca, 1997. Gattaca did not explode at the box office because it did not look like a normal sci-fi event. There were no giant alien ships, no laser battles, no loud end-of-the-world action scenes. Instead, it gave audiences a quiet, elegant future where the scariest weapon was not a gun, it was a blood test. The film is set in a world where children are genetically designed for success. Your DNA decides your job, your status, your health, and your worth. People born naturally are treated like mistakes before they even get a chance to prove themselves. That is where Vincent Freeman comes in. He is born without genetic perfection, and society tells him his dream of going to space is impossible. But Vincent refuses to accept the future written inside his body. He takes on the identity of Jerome, a genetically perfect man whose life has been broken in another way. Their arrangement becomes more than a scam. It becomes a strange, tragic partnership between two men crushed by the same system from opposite sides. Vincent has the spirit but not the genes. Jerome has the genes but not the hope. That is why Gattaca still feels powerful. It is not really about space travel. It is about every person who has ever been told they are not good enough before they even begin. Ethan Hawke gives Vincent quiet fire, while Jude Law brings sadness and dignity to Jerome. The movie failed commercially, but its warning became stronger with time. In a world obsessed with perfection, data, and prediction, Gattaca looks less like fiction and more like a warning we ignored. Number 6. Dredd, 2012. Dredd is one of those box office failures that still makes fans angry. Not because the movie was misunderstood a little, but because it was misunderstood completely. Here was a lean, brutal, stylish sci-fi action film that respected its source material, trusted its audience, and refused to waste time on nonsense. And somehow, theaters were almost empty. Part of the problem was marketing. The film was pushed heavily as a 3D experience, which made it look like a gimmick instead of the hard-edged action movie it really was. It also had to fight the bad memory of the earlier Judge Dredd film, which had turned the character into something much sillier. Audiences thought they already knew what this was. They did not. The genius of Dredd is how simple it is. Judge Dredd and rookie Judge Anderson enter Peachtree's, a massive tower block controlled by the vicious drug lord Mama. They become trapped inside, surrounded by enemies, and must fight their way through floor by floor. That is the whole setup, and the film uses it perfectly. Karl Urban never removes the helmet, and that choice is brilliant. He does not play Dredd as a charming hero. He plays him as a walking law machine, cold, controlled, and terrifying. Olivia Thirlby's Anderson gives the story its human balance, because she still questions what justice actually means. The action is violent but never lazy. The slow-motion drug sequences are strangely beautiful, turning horror into frozen glass. Dredd bombed, but fans kept it alive. It was not too small. It was too sharp for a blockbuster world that wanted everything softened. Number 5. Children of Men, 2006. It still feels strange to call Children of Men a box office disappointment, because today it is spoken about like a modern classic. But when it first came out, audiences did not turn it into a major hit. Maybe it was too bleak. Maybe it was too serious. Maybe people did not want to spend money watching a future that felt so close to collapse. But that is exactly why the movie became unforgettable. The premise is simple and terrifying. No child has been born in years. Humanity has lost its future, and the world has not ended with one giant disaster. It has slowly rotted. Governments are cruel, borders are violent, streets are dirty, people are angry, tired, and numb. Hope has become something almost embarrassing. Clive Owen plays Theo, a man who has emotionally given up. He moves through this broken world like someone already half dead inside. Then he is asked to protect Key, a young woman carrying the first baby in nearly 2 decades. Suddenly, the future is not a speech, a flag, or a dream. It is a frightened woman and an unborn child. Alfonso Cuarón directs the film with terrifying realism. The famous long takes do not feel like tricks. They make the viewer feel trapped inside the danger. The car ambush, the refugee camp, and the final battle feel less like movie scenes and more like footage smuggled out of a collapsing world. Children of Men was too heavy to become easy entertainment, but years later, its reputation only grows. It did not just imagine the future. It exposed the fear already sitting inside the present. Number 4. The Iron Giant, 1999. The failure of The Iron Giant is one of the strangest and saddest stories in animation history. Here was a beautifully made film with strong reviews, a huge emotional heart, and a story that could speak to children and adults at the same time. Yet when it reached theaters, it did not become the hit it deserved to be. The reason was not quality. The reason was mostly poor marketing and bad timing. Many people simply did not know the movie existed, and those who did often assumed it was just another cartoon about a robot. But The Iron Giant was much more than that. It was a Cold War story. It was a friendship story. It was a sci-fi fable about fear, choice, and the danger of seeing everything unknown as a threat. The story follows Hogarth, a lonely boy who discovers a giant robot from space. Adults see the giant as a weapon. The military sees him as a danger. But Hogarth sees something innocent, curious, and alive. That emotional contrast gives the movie its power. The giant himself becomes one of cinema's most lovable sci-fi creations, because he is not defined by what he was built to do. He is defined by what he chooses to become. The line, "You are who you choose to be," is simple, but it hits with enormous force. The ending still destroys people because it is earned. It is not cheap sadness. It is sacrifice, love, and identity in one unforgettable moment. The Iron Giant lost money, but it won immortality. The box office forgot it. The audience's heart did not. Number 3. The Thing, 1982. When The Thing opened in 1982, audiences were not ready for it. That year, people had fallen in love with a sweet alien who wanted to phone home. Then John Carpenter delivered an alien that tore bodies apart, copied human beings, and turned trust into poison. The timing could not have been worse. The box office was disappointing, and many critics were brutal. Some saw it as too disgusting, too cold, too violent, and too hopeless. But time has a funny way of correcting bad first reactions. Today, The Thing is not just respected, it is considered one of the greatest sci-fi horror films ever made. The setup is perfect. A group of men are isolated in Antarctica, trapped by snow, distance, and fear. Then they discover an alien organism that can imitate any living creature. That means the monster does not have to chase them from the shadows. It can sit beside them. It can talk like them. It can wear the face of a friend. That is what makes the film brilliant. The real horror is not only the creature. It is suspicion. Once trust is gone, the group begins to destroy itself from the inside. Every glance becomes dangerous. Every silence becomes suspicious. Every man in the room could be the enemy. Rob Bottin's practical effects remain shocking because they feel physical and impossible at the same time. But Kurt Russell's MacReady gives the chaos a human center, tired, angry, scared, but still fighting. The Thing failed at first because it was too dark for its moment. Later, audiences realized that darkness was exactly what made it a masterpiece. Number 2. Blade Runner, 1982. When Blade Runner first came out, it was not welcomed like the masterpiece people call it today. Many viewers expected a fast, exciting Harrison Ford adventure after Star Wars and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Instead, they got a slow, rain-soaked philosophical detective story about artificial humans, memory, loneliness, and death. The box office response was underwhelming, and the film's reputation took years to fully recover. But once audiences had time to revisit it, especially through later cuts, Blade Runner became one of the most influential sci-fi films ever made. Ridley Scott's future Los Angeles is still astonishing. It is crowded, dirty, neon-lit, and alive with decay. Flying cars move above streets packed with people. Giant advertisements glow through endless rain. The city feels futuristic and ancient at the same time, like civilization has advanced technologically while rotting spiritually. But the real brilliance is not just the look. It is the question at the center of the film. What makes someone human? The replicants are supposed to be artificial, yet they feel the most desperate to live. Roy Batty is dangerous, but he is also tragic. He has strength, intelligence, memory, fear, and a soul-like hunger for more time. Harrison Ford's Deckard is not a clean hero. He is tired, morally uncertain, and trapped inside a system that treats life like property. That makes the film richer and more uncomfortable. Blade Runner failed to dominate theaters because it was too slow, too strange, and too thoughtful for blockbuster expectations. But the future understood it. Its influence is everywhere, from cyberpunk visuals to stories about artificial identity. The box office missed it. Cinema history did not. Number 1. John Carter, 2012. At number 1 is a film that became almost too famous for failing, John Carter. For years, people talked about its huge budget, confusing marketing, and painful financial loss more than they talked about the movie itself. It became one of Hollywood's favorite examples of a blockbuster disaster. But here is the controversial part. John Carter was never as bad as its reputation. In fact, it was a fun, sincere, old-fashioned space adventure buried under one of the worst marketing campaigns of its era. The film is based on Edgar Rice Burroughs' classic Mars stories, which helped inspire generations of science fiction and fantasy. That created a strange problem. By the time John Carter finally reached the screen, many movies had already borrowed from the kind of adventure Burroughs helped create. So instead of looking original to modern audiences, it looked familiar. People did not realize they were watching one of the roots of the genre. The story follows John Carter, a damaged Civil War veteran who is transported to Mars, known as Barsoom. There he finds strange creatures, warring kingdoms, flying machines, alien tribes, and a princess scientist named Dejah Thoris. It is pulpy, colorful, romantic, and proudly adventurous. Taylor Kitsch gives Carter a wounded toughness, while Lynn Collins brings real strength to Dejah. The world building is bigger and more imaginative than the trailers suggested. The movie has flaws, but it also has heart, scale, and a sense of wonder that many safer blockbusters lack. John Carter bombed because audiences were not properly told why they should care. But beneath the financial disaster was a bold sci-fi fantasy adventure that deserved a much better fate. So next time Hollywood calls a movie a failure, maybe don't believe it too quickly. Some films are not bad, they are early. They arrive before audiences are ready. Before studios know how to sell them, and before critics know what they are seeing. These sci-fi bombs lost the money race, but many of them won the future, and sometimes that is the victory that matters most.